You are Locked On Hawks Postcast, part of Locked On Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Hawks Postcast. I'm your host, Jarvis Davis. I got my main man, Deshaun Tate. He is our resident hoops expert. The Hawks lose 124-122 to the Utah Jazz. And don't forget, guys, always remember that we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And also, the Locked On Hawks Postcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, coming up in the and one, JJ is back. And plus, in our Who's Next segment, it is showtime in LA because the Hawks missed out on the opportunity in Utah. But first, we have to talk about just the overall big takeaway from the game, Deshaun. When you look at this game and you think about how it played out in the end, I think that pretty much I can agree with you when you say that, hey, this loss is truly, truly unacceptable.
No, it definitely is, JD. And listen, I feel that way. I feel like I'm on the fence back and forth between how unacceptable it really is. Part of the reason why I'm a little bit okay with it is just because, I'm always the person that's willing to stand on the sword to say that I can understand if a team is better than you or if a team is just hitting shots. They can't miss a shot on accident, even if they tried. And just everything is falling in, like they throwing a rock into the ocean from the boat, like you just can't miss. That not necessarily being the case, but even if that is the case, I can be like, okay, just compete. Just show me that you are able to be competitive. Just show me that you can stand in there and fight. Show me some grit, do some of those little things. But then there's those games that you got to win. And this is one that they had to win specifically and primarily for the reasoning behind. You played a bad team in Portland just the other night, 48 hours ago. That was your win, if we're just being honest.
Right.
You didn't get that win. Here comes Utah. This is the more than likely one of the 5 games that you have on this West Coast road trip that one of those 2 are going to be your most likely. So this was your must win of the 5 if you didn't get the first one. You didn't get this one. And you didn't get this one just because you didn't get this one. You didn't get this one because of I don't understand them forcing a 2-point, forcing 2 unbalanced, ill-advised threes under 1 minute when you're only down by 2 points, 124, 122, not really understanding that. Some of that was kind of on DeJounte Murray. We don't have Trae Young to necessarily blame in this situation for poor shot selection. So I think some of that was on display. And then I don't know who drew up the whole go to Vit Crushy for the last shot, JD. I would have rather my great grandmother Bessie taking that shot, and she's no longer here with us anymore. Right. If I'm just being honest, but you got too many other good guys between DeJounte, Jalen Johnson. You have DeAndre Hunter, who's surprisingly been having a better night than he had the last one. Vit not being the guy that I want to take that shot. So I don't know if that was drawn up or it's just get the ball to the guy that's wide open and close your eyes and say a prayer. But that there was a little bit of more disappointment by the way that it ended. Not so much the fact that the end result when it ended.
And you know what? I think that's the kind of like the big point for me in this game is that last possession. It kind of spoke to like what this game was really all about. Because when you think about that trap situation, we know that when Trae is on the floor, that teams, Miami made it famous, right? Like we're going to trap and get the ball out of your hands. We're going to make your teammates beat you. We're going to see how good they are. And I think the Utah Jazz did that tonight. Shout out to Will Hardy for saying, hey, you know what? Let's get the ball out of this cat's hand. Because to be honest with you, man, like the Jazz went on that 8-0 run in the fourth quarter, and I thought the game was pretty much over at that point. But when you think about those 2 YOLO threes that DeJounte hit and he got him back into that game.
I love that. What'd you say, YOLO threes?
YOLO threes, yeah. YOLO threes. He ain't got no just. Hey, man, look, I'm going for it. Like, hey, because he had 14 in the fourth quarter. So when you think about that aspect of the game, DeJounte was struggling. He was struggling from the field. And when you think about what he was able to, he ended up, 10 for 27 from the field and 5 for 14 from 3. So that's not a good shooting night for DeJounte. And I think that, for him to come up with those 2 big threes at the end, to even have a chance, an opportunity to win the game, you got to commend him for that. But I just think that overall, man, when you look at how this game played out, I think, DeJounte, from a point guard standpoint, it kind of shows his weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other part of that, and I'm glad that you even mentioned something about DeJounte, because, we're talking about some of his struggles and things like that. If there's one guy on this team who can afford to have some struggles, it's probably 1A and 1B between him and Jalen Johnson, just because I feel like they've earned themselves that right a little bit.
They do so much for the squad. Yeah.
But DeJounte went 19 game minutes on a scoring drought. So from the point in the second quarter where there was 7 minutes left is when he had scored his last bucket, between then and pretty much the very end of the third quarter when he hit 2 back-to-back big-time shots. That's 19 game minutes, and the Hawks happened to still be in the game. It was 96-93 at that point, only down by 3. Right. But I think that was telling. And something else that I thought was telling was me and Tanisha always talking about, what rears its ugly head besides, the infamous "hello, my name is" random guy that comes off, the bench and just start killing the Hawks. By the way, that was Micah. Oh, you heard me say "hello, my name is" with a little sticker whenever you go to a little convention or something. "Hello, my name is." Yeah, well, wearing those stickers on tonight was Micah Potter, who had a career high of 11 points. By the way, didn't miss a shot, and then Johnny Juzang with 19 points. So I think that was something that kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. You're getting guys that's going to kill you, Collin Sexton or some of these dogs on this team. That's one thing, but to have it be 2 guys that just got caught up, like a couple hours ago from the G League, that didn't help very much. 34 points in the first quarter for Utah in terms of scoring, 37 points in the third quarter in terms of scoring. That's like the typical Achilles heel that me and Tanisha are always talking about. The first and the third quarter absolutely killing the Atlanta Hawks, and tonight was just another example of that.
Yeah, man. When you think about like what Johnny Juzang was able to do, and like this dude is not a 3-point shooter
at all,
but he was putting them up. He was putting them up like 5 for 8 from the 3-point line, and he was probably the only guy, outside of Collin Sexton and John Collins, ironically, who had a good night shooting from behind the arc. So it's just so interesting to me when you have guys like that do things to the Hawks. It seems like it's always those random guys. I've checked out the shows you and Tanisha have done, and for those who are missing Tanisha, she'll be back. Don't worry, she'll be back. She's out of town right now, so I'm holding down a seat. I'm keeping it warm until she comes back. So, but I think overall though, man, it just kind of goes to show you. It goes back to what the Hawks struggle with, right? Any team who's just from being able to put the ball on the floor and also be able to shoot well from behind the arc, like there are just certain guys that just do well against this team, and I think that not only Johnny Juzang and Potter, like you got to give Keyonte George all the credit right now.
Absolutely. You got to. And listen, I mean, when you start talking about like what he was able to do, I mean, I like that backcourt tandem between those guys because they're both hungry. They're both dogs. They're both playing with aggression. They both playing with a chip on their shoulder. When it's crazy because coming into this game, I'm looking at it and then I saw a very interesting, fact about the game, that this was Utah's youngest starting lineup in 22 years, which I think is partially kind of blasphemous for Atlanta to kind of lose this game. Right. If I'm just being honest, we knew that it was probably going to try and be a revenge game for John Collins after coming in, a couple weeks ago and
5 points,
10 rebounds, 22 minutes, 5 turnovers, by the way, and walking away with a loss. So he kind of wanted to get some revenge and welcome them into Salt Lake City. But I did have some reservations early, if I'm just being honest, about this Atlanta Hawks team ability to kind of keep up with the Jazz, that fast pace, that youth, that run and jump, high athleticism. I call it elevator escalator style of play. That
Right.
up and down, up and down, up and down, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, up and down, up and down. That was something that I thought could propose a problem to this team. There were some instances where I didn't see it propose as much of a problem, but you start talking about two explosive guys, especially in the backcourt, that are young and hungry, like Sexton and George.
Keyonte, Georgia.
Yeah, that was a huge piece to why we seen a number added to the right side of the result column for the Atlanta Hawks tonight.
Absolutely. 124 to 122. The Hawks lose to the Utah Jazz. Coming up next, there was one silver lining, and his name is JJ. Listen up, folks. This episode of the Locked On Hawks Postcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd, the LeBron of fantasy basketball. You need to check him out, I promise you, to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're preparing for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. How about this, guys? We just got through talking about him. Keyonte George got buckets tonight. When you think about what Keyonte George was able to do against the Atlanta Hawks, I'm talking about this man went for 25 points. He had only 2 turnovers, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. I'm talking about 8 for 8 from the free throw line. He took care of all the business tonight by putting the ball on the floor and getting to the cup against the Atlanta Hawks. So check out my main man, Josh Lloyd. He has got you covered with all the right picks in the fantasy basketball world. Now, Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. The same goes for your vehicle. How about this, guys? When you're looking for certain parts, eBay Motors has got you covered. Do you remember a time when you had to fix your car or to keep it running or a cool upgrade you really wanted? They got everything you absolutely need. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. I'm talking about from brake kits to LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. And when you're talking about prices, with all this doggone inflation going on, please, yes, I need all of that. I need all the savings I can possibly get. So you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Hawks look to the Utah Jazz, 124 to 122. But even though the Hawks got this loss tonight, Deshaun, you got to look at what Jalen Johnson was able to do. He got off to a little slow start. He was a little rusty. You know, he's been out for a few games, so you kind of expect that. But when you think about what he's able to do, start putting the ball on the floor, being aggressive, he started dropping dimes out there. And when you think about ending a final line of 26 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 from 8 from 3, you got to appreciate Jalen Johnson being back in his first game.
Of course. I mean, listen, that has been kind of like the saving grace for this team pretty much all season. When he's not out there in the lineup, and I know we love to talk about DeJounte and how much of a saving grace he has been without Trae. Absolutely, I don't think anybody's going to question that. But in some instances, I think it's just that much more impressive that when we talk about guys like Jalen Johnson, when you put him in the lineup, it's almost just as gives you at least the same vibe, the same feeling, the same energy as being able to insert DeJounte Murray as, you know, that guy when you don't have a Trae. So just that feeling, because of everything that he's given you in a very small window, small sample size of time, like this year. Sometimes I'm questionable, and I know we're just talking about this year. I think sometimes we do have to temper our expectations and be realistic sometimes because, when he doesn't have necessarily great games, I know that might be something a little bit different, but I think that I like what I saw. We have to give him some time to be able to get back into not necessarily like game shape, but just get back into the swing of things. We've kind of, to a degree, been kind of spoiled with Jalen Johnson.
Absolutely.
So, but I think it's great for him to come out and give the kind of contribution that he has, especially on tonight. And Jarvis, I know you saw this. In the third quarter, I think the score was 70-69.
Yes.
With about 9 minutes left or something like that. The dunk on
Right.
we always talk about John Collins baptizing folks. And I love the way it was like the mentor and the mentee, right? When you seen that dunk and you seen just hands stretched out, and it was like, hey, I'm here, baby. Like, and this was my spot. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I loved that kind of energy out of Jalen, because that wasn't really so much his mentality watching him through high school and through college. He's kind of soft-spoken and stuff like that, kind of reserved guy. I like to see him kind of developing and growing into his body, developing and growing into his game. A lot of that is confidence based off the way that he's been playing as of late.
You know what? I think you bring up a great point because I think that, we talk about giving grace, right? As far as like, hey, he's going to have some games where you're like, okay, all right, Jalen, what happened? And then you have a moment like where he yams on John Collins, and John Collins can do nothing but, hey, slap him on the back and like, oh, man, that was a good one. You got me.
No doubt. Yeah, you got me on that one.
You got me on that one.
Sometimes you got to tip your cap.
Yeah, of course. No doubt about it. And I think that the Hawks front office, they did. Like, if they sit up there and said that we will be talking about Jalen Johnson being in the most improved player conversation in the entirety of the NBA and not at a team banquet at the end of the year, they will be lying. They will be absolutely lying, because when they traded away John Collins, we all know what that was. That was a strictly a financial move, because they got peanuts in return. And they know exactly what they were doing when it came to that. It was finally time for him to go. He ended up getting up out of there. But I feel like they didn't know that Jalen Johnson was going to be this good.
No, I don't think so.
Not know.
I didn't.
No, see, I had expectations, but because of what I saw the previous year, when at time he was able to get in those last 20 some odd games. With Quin Snyder last year towards the end of the year when he came in, you saw some flashes, right? I was like, okay, Jalen looked like he's going to be able to do something. But I did not expect this. So when he does have those games and you say, oh, man, what's going on with him? Like, you have to kind of temper those expectations, because like those weren't the expectations coming into the season. Absolutely not. But you got to look at from what he's been able to bring to the table, and the development and the growth. Like I said, he got off to a slow start to start this game, because this is his first game back. As the game went along, you just saw him start to get comfortable. He wasn't hesitating when he was wide open from three.
And it happened fast.
And it happened really fast. And it seems like he gets into a groove when he's putting the ball on the floor and dropping dimes, to whether to be to Clint Capella or on a swing pass or passing it out to DeAndre Hunter for an open shot. I just feel like, man, Jalen Johnson got some good stuff going on, and I'm more than willing to, give him a little grace when he has those down games.
I'm gonna tell you what he kind of reminds me of, if I'm being real. It reminds me of John Collins a little bit. When John came in, nobody expected John to look like that. It was like, all right, I don't know much about this John Collins kid, but I can get used to this. You know what I'm saying? And then you saw that be paired with Trae, because he came in the year before Trae. So when you saw that get paired with Trae, it's like, all right, we might actually
pick and roll was sweet.
We might actually have something here. And then, like you said, the pick and roll was real sweet. The lobs was real sweet. And then next thing you know, we're talking about something. Like, don't forget, we was talking about John potentially having a realistic chance at an all-star potentially. Sure. How realistic that was, I don't know. But he was kind of somewhat borderline to like maybe making a case for himself. Like, that started kind of ramping up slowly. And so when you have someone like, Jalen who's playing like this, and that's why I say tempering the expectations and stuff like that, just because, that next year that follows, you're not taking nobody by surprise. The opposition is doing their homework differently. They're going to make adjustments on you. They're paying attention to you a little bit more. Now, some of those things start to make a difference. But if I'm just being honest with you, JD, like, I'm enjoying what we're getting out of it for right now, if not nothing else, because right now is really all that matters.
Yeah, and that's what matters because of so many guys being out. I feel like this is that one shining light. This little light of mine, he took it from Kobe Buffkin, and said,
No
"Hey,
doubt.
man, like now, like Jalen needs to carry that light, because
No
we know
doubt.
what DeJounte Murray brings to the table, right? We have expectations, like he
For
got
sure.
the contract and the money. He needs to live up that now that Trae Young is out. But when you got a guy like Jalen Johnson, who if he plays, I believe if he plays the rest of the games, he'll be eligible to receive that Most Improved Player award. And if he were to get that and be able to play for the rest of this season, I feel like he has to be the number one guy for that award. And I'm rooting for him. I promise. I promise I am rooting for him to get that thing and do his thing going forward. But now, speaking of going forward, how about this? It's showtime in LA. And the Clippers are up first. We'll talk about that next, right here on the Locked On Hawks postcast. This episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is also brought to you by Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping just for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season because guess what, guys? It's starting to warm up. I still got my hoodie on because it's cold down here in my basement, in my studio. So, but it's warming up outside. I'm talking about 65, 70 degrees. So, how about you go to Stitch Fix to go ahead and get that spring wardrobe popping off? Because once it gets warm, everybody and their mama go be outside and the sundresses and all that good stuff. All I can do is just look now because I'm a married man. But, y'all know what I'm talking about. So just give. The Stitch Fix makes it so easy. I don't like to shop. Promise you guys. I hate going to the mall. I don't like to shop at all. And so Stitch Fix is going to be able to save you some time and effort. Plus, you can get outfits that make you look good and feel good. Just like Prime used to say, you look good, you play good. You play good, you get paid good. So yeah, go to Stitch Fix right now and go and get somebody that can make you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/locked on. That's stitchfix.com/locked on. That's LOCKEDON. Stitch Fix. Go and get you that stylist so you can look real good and feel good. Wrapping things up right here on the Locked On Hawks postcast. The Hawks lose to the Jazz 124-122. So we're going to try to flush that loss down the toilet and look ahead to the Los Angeles Clippers. Oh, how about that? The Hawks are getting ready to travel out to LA on Sunday night against the Clippers. Deshaun, when you think about this matchup, right? I think Russell Westbrook has been out and James Harden was questionable. So when you think about this team and what they've been able to do, what do you feel like is the most important thing for the Hawks to do to be able to not only try to win a game, but just to be able to compete?
I think you definitely got to go in with a level of confidence and putting these two games behind you. First of all, hoping that the Clippers is just not going to take you serious. And I know that that's kind of a tough ask, and it seems like it's kind of not realistic. But I mean, they also understand who's coming in and who they're getting ready to play. Clippers probably are not going to play with nearly as much urgency as they would a lot of the other teams. But as far as just controlling what you can control, I probably say this preparing for every other game. Obviously, rebounding is very important, but just ball security, taking care of the ball instead of putting yourself in a position where you're just basically giving the other team the ball. Shoot the ball and put yourself in position to where you have a 50-50 shot at making it or missing it. and knocking shots down from the charity stripe. So I saw something earlier on tonight with tonight's game. And let me see if I can get back to it because I know that I had it written down here, but it definitely was not ideal. I think at the half it was. That is correct. The Hawks nearly shot better from 3 than they did from the free throw line. That's terrible. They shot 50% from 3 at the end of the half and 58% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Those are freebies. That's what we call the free space on the bingo card. Nobody's running at you. Nobody's, you're going to have some thunder sticks behind the backboard and screaming fans and all that kind of stuff. Outside of that, locking in and focusing. So you got to be able to knock down those freebies because perfect example on a night like tonight, easily, maybe not easily, but definitely a winnable game if you're able to hit those free ones in some very critical moments. Those are just the important things. Control what you can control. You're not going to be able to officiate and different things like that. You're never going to be able to control of that. But just the effort. Like I said at the very beginning, Jay, I'm okay with the team Clippers, better roster than you. Better record, better talent all across the board. Win, lose, or draw. Of course I want to see the Hawks win. But I can live with the fact that if I see with a loss, if I see them fight, if I see them compete, if I see them getting on the ground after loose balls, creating second chance points, sending 5 guys at the rim, not backing down, playing defense. The little things. If I see them doing the little things, I can be okay with it. They do the little things, they got a chance at winning.
Just like Wesley Matthews said at halftime, just give a damn.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
I can't say it better myself. I like that there, JD.
Right. Just give it them. And it starts on the defensive side of the court, right? Because that's effort. That's that's locking in. That's communicating. Like Mike Bray even said it as well. Like he talked about how that connectivity on defense is what they're going to be able to do. You got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to lock in. Those are some of the things that the Hawks, they lack. When I talked about going back to Keyonte George and the night that he had, 25 points. The dude was getting to the cup and he was getting those and ones. And because he was being aggressive. Now the Hawks shot really well from 3-point. But you know what that does though? If you're shooting from the 3-point line, that means you're not necessarily being aggressive and trying to get to the cup. So if you're not necessarily on a consistent basis being aggressive and trying to get to the cup, then you're not going to get those foul calls. You know who got the most foul calls? Is the Utah Jazz. They got a lot of calls because they were being aggressive all night. Even Johnny Juzang, the Rando who went off, just came from the G League, Mr. Potter himself, all those guys just coming out of the G League and having career highs, like you're not going to get those calls, if you aren't being aggressive and going to the cup on a consistent basis. That's why you saw the Utah Jazz be able to dominate in the paint, and they can't go up into LA and try to do the same thing and trying to win the game from behind the arc. I get your coach telling you to put them up and keep putting them up as much as you possibly can. But at some point, if you want to get those freebies, like you said, if you want to be able to get an opportunity to knock those bad boys down, you got to get some aggression behind you and get down and put some people in foul trouble, man.
There's a couple things that I want to throw out here before we roll up out of here, JD. The first thing being that I think after some very choice words calling out DeAndre Hunter in our last episode after that Portland game and how abysmal that was, or just atrocious, or whatever other word that I can throw out there that is an equate or bad that I cannot spell the word, let alone barely say it. Nonetheless, it was true. I think he heard it, He had to have watched our last episode. There was a point in time in the third quarter where he went off and scored 11 consecutive points for the Hawks. So I like to see that because that is the kind of offensive firepower and high-octane offensive shooting that we expect to see from somebody like a DeAndre Hunter. That's why he's coming off the bench, and that's why he's better coming off of it. Outside of that, definitely want to give some genuine and sincere condolences to Antonio Lang, one of the assistants for the Atlanta Hawks, who's dealing with a transitioning of his father. So definitely want to send some positivity and some optimistic vibes to him and his family from us here at the Locked On Hawks family as well. And last little piece on a little bit more, kind of break the somber note a little bit. I will be just fine if I never go back to Salt Lake City ever again, JD. I have to make sure that I mention that. I went in 2018 when Trae first got drafted. I went to the Summer League before they do Summer League in Vegas. They did Summer League out in Salt Lake City where they played, I think, about 3 or 4 games or something like that. Went out there to check out some of their food. Now, not that I had high expectations, JD, that the food was going to be busting like that, because I didn't. Right. But when you go places, you want to try and go to some local spots and kind of see what they known for a little bit or what have you. So I decided to try some things out. I did 5 days in Salt Lake and I did 5 days in Vegas. The first probably 2 or 3 days, I tried to do some Salt Lake local stuff. Wasn't happening. Didn't taste like anything. Didn't think it was bad food. But it just didn't taste like anything. It was like eating air. Right. So I said, okay. 3rd day rolls around. I'm going to just try and do something regular like regular people. I'm going to get some pizza. I'm going to try some Pizza Hut. The Pizza Hut tasted like air, like nothing. So I will be just fine. It's funny that we've been having this conversation and plans Utah on tonight, because I was like, I want to share this short story with JD. I don't know if JD has any intentions, purposes, or what have you of ever going to Salt Lake City, Utah, but I'm not even confident that the salad tastes like anything. I just thought I'd put that little bug in your ear.
I went to Park City, Utah before.
Park City, where is that?
It's where they held the Winter Olympics some time ago. Yeah, so it's not too far from Salt Lake as well. So yeah,
Didn't know that.
Yeah, man. So I've been to Utah before. So I've experienced Utah, and
and that's that.
Yeah. Utah. I had a good time with the people that I was out there with. So yeah. We'll just keep it at that.
There we go.
Well, since we'll leave it there. We thank you guys for making the Locked On Hawks podcast your first listen or view of the day after this Hawks game at nighttime. We are free and available wherever you download your podcast. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Locked On Sports Atlanta has all type of programming for the city of Atlanta when it comes to the Hawks, the Falcons, the Braves. We got you covered, people. And plus, for more on the Hawks, make sure you check out our guy, Brad Rowland. He is the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast. So, guys, we got you covered right here. So, anything and everything Atlanta, we appreciate you, and we'll see you on Sunday after the Clippers game.